By spring 1944, Nazi Germany's iron grip strangled Europe from the Atlantic to Moscow's gates. France had fallen in 6 catastrophic weeks. 4 years earlier, its cities draped in swastika banners, its people subjected to occupation and terror. Britain stood defiant but isolated, scarred by the Blitz and unable to liberate a continent alone. Churchill knew victory required powerful allies with the industrial might to crush Hitler's war machine. To the east, the Soviet Union bled. Since Hitler's Operation Barbarossa in June 1941, millions perished at Leningrad, Stalingrad, and Kursk. Stalin demanded repeatedly that Western allies open a second front in France to relieve pressure on his armies. President Roosevelt understood the strategic necessity. After Pearl Harbor, America's vast industrial capacity mobilized fully. At Tehran in November 1943, the Big Three, Churchill, Roosevelt, and Stalin, reached consensus. There would be an invasion of northwestern France in spring 1944. Operation Overlord, the largest amphibious assault in history, would determine Western civilization's fate. Hitler anticipated the invasion. Along the Atlantic Wall, German engineers constructed bunkers, laid millions of mines, and erected beach obstacles. Field Marshal Rommel, commanding Army Group B, inspected defenses personally, demanding more fortifications. He told subordinates the Allies must be defeated on the beaches in the first hours, or Germany would lose the war. The Allies understood surprise was essential. Hitler expected invasion at Pas de Calais, the Channel's narrowest point. To exploit this, the Allies launched Operation Bodyguard, creating phantom armies with inflatable tanks and fake radio traffic. The fictitious army group, supposedly commanded by General Patton, whom Germans feared most, appeared poised to strike Calais. Hitler took the bait. In reality, invasion would come at Normandy, between the Cotentin Peninsula and Caen. The plan required coordination of naval, air, and ground forces on unprecedented scale, demanding courage, ingenuity, and luck. By early summer 1944, southern England became an armed camp. Over 1 million Allied soldiers, American, British, Canadian, Free French, Polish, assembled. They cleaned weapons, wrote letters home, and suppressed gnawing fear. The world held its breath. The architects of liberation, General Dwight Eisenhower, Supreme Commander, possessed rare gifts for coalition warfare. Appointed in December 1943, he bore ultimate responsibility for Overlord's success or failure. Field Marshal Montgomery, commanding Allied ground forces initially, was meticulous and confident. He insisted the original 3-division assault was inadequate, arguing for 5 divisions across a broader front with airborne divisions dropped behind enemy lines. Eisenhower agreed. Admiral Bertram Ramsay would assemble history's largest armada, nearly 7,000 vessels, and coordinate Operation Neptune, the naval component. Air Chief Marshal Tedder coordinated Allied air operations, pounding German infrastructure for months before D-Day, to isolate the Normandy battlefield and achieve air superiority. General Omar Bradley commanded U.S. First Army, assaulting Utah and Omaha beaches. He worried that Omaha, dominated by high bluffs and fortified positions, would be most difficult. Lieutenant General Dempsey commanded British Second Army at Gold, Juno, and Sword beaches. The logistics were staggering. Over 1 million men moved to southern England, trained, equipped, and briefed. Secrecy was paramount. Coastal areas were sealed, civilians evacuated. Engineers studied tide tables and beach gradients. Medics stockpiled blood plasma. British Major General Hobart developed specialized armored vehicles, Hobart's Funnies, including D.D. Sherman tanks that could swim ashore, flail tanks detonating mines, and aviaries demolishing bunkers. 2 artificial harbors, codenamed mulberries, would be created from enormous concrete caissons. Pipeline Pluto would pump fuel from England to France. Deception operations continued. Double agents fed false intelligence. Every element reinforced Hitler's belief that Calais remained the primary target. By late May 1944, the machine was ready. Soldiers boarded transports. Paratroopers checked parachutes. The invasion was scheduled for June 5th, but everything depended on weather. The storm before the storm. On June 3rd, Eisenhower met commanders at Southwick House. Meteorologist Group Captain Stagg reported grim news. A massive low-pressure system brought gale-force winds and heavy clouds. Seas would be rough, visibility poor, air support impossible. Eisenhower faced an agonizing decision. Ships were already at sea. To recall them risked alerting the Germans. Yet proceeding into a storm courted disaster. After tense deliberation, Eisenhower postponed 24 hours to June 6th. The following evening, Stagg returned with hope. The storm was moving faster than expected. A brief window of relatively calm weather might open on June 6th. Not ideal, but perhaps enough. After long silence, Eisenhower delivered his famous words. "Okay, let's go." The German command was oblivious. The storm convinced them invasion was impossible. Rommel took leave to celebrate his wife's birthday. Other officers attended war games far from the coast. German meteorologists, lacking Atlantic weather stations, failed to predict the clear window Stagg identified. As darkness fell June 5th, thousands of ships sailed into the night. Minesweepers cleared paths, battleships and cruisers followed. The sea was rough, many men were violently seasick. In airfields across southern England, paratroopers prepared. They blackened faces, donned parachutes, and boarded C-47 transports carrying over 100 pounds of gear each. Eisenhower visited the 101st Airborne, offering encouragement while sick with worry over potential 50% casualties. At 22 hours June 5th, the first C-47s lifted off. Nearly 13,000 paratroopers would descend upon Normandy. Operation Overlord had begun. Blanche Noir's the longest night. The night of June 5th-6th brought chaos and courage. American 1st and 82nd Airborne Divisions would land behind Omaha Beach, securing causeway exits and capturing Sainte-Mère-Église. British 6th Airborne would land east of the Orne River, securing bridges and high ground. Flying into thick clouds and heavy flak, formations disintegrated. German anti-aircraft fire lit the darkness. Aircraft bucked and weaved. Paratroopers were scattered across miles of countryside, landing in flooded fields, marshes, or German positions. Officers separated from men. Soldiers found themselves alone in enemy territory. Yet from chaos emerged heroism. At Sainte-Mère-Église, paratroopers descended directly onto the village square. Germans opened fire. Some were shot before hitting ground. Despite disaster, elements fought house to house, and by dawn, Sainte-Mère-Église was in American hands, the first liberated French town. Lieutenant Colonel Krauss raised the American flag at 4:30 hours, the first to fly over liberated France. Small groups coalesced in darkness, using cricket clickers and passwords. Despite wide scattering, the 101st achieved many objectives through improvisation. The capture of La Fière and Chef du Pont causeways was critical for Omaha Beach access. On the eastern flank, Major John Howard led gliders carrying troops in a daring raid on Pegasus Bridge. Landing at precisely 00:16, they stormed the bridge before Germans could detonate charges. Within 10 minutes, Pegasus Bridge was theirs. The 6th Airborne's other objective was destroying Merville Battery. Lieutenant Colonel Otway attacked with only 150 men, most scattered. overwhelming the garrison in savage combat. By dawn, airborne divisions hadn't fully achieved objectives. Units were scattered, casualties high. Yet they'd sown confusion, disrupted communications, and secured key positions. The longest night tested them, and they'd not been found wanting. Dawn over hell. At first light, June 6th, history's largest armada lay off Normandy. Battleships, cruisers, destroyers, and landing craft stretching to the horizon. At 5:50, naval bombardment began. The deep roar of battleship guns shattered the morning. Shells screamed overhead, detonating among German fortifications. Omaha Beach. The 4th Infantry Division landed at 6:30, pushed 2,000 yards south by currents. Brigadier General Theodore Roosevelt Jr., 56 and arthritic, landed with the first wave. Realizing the error, he examined terrain with his walking stick and declared, "We'll start the war from right here." The unintended zone was less defended. Utah was a success, fewer than 200 casualties. Roosevelt earned the Medal of Honor. Omaha Beach. Hell itself, the Crescent Beach, was dominated by steep bluffs with German bunkers, artillery, machine guns, mortars, and pillboxes. The 352nd Infantry Division, undetected by intelligence, defended with determination. DD tanks launched too far out, foundered and sank. Landing craft drifted off course. When ramps dropped at 06:30, men met a storm of fire. First off were cut down instantly. Others drowned, dragged under by equipment weight. The beach became a killing ground. Officers screamed at men to move. "Get off the beach or die." Brigadier General Cota walked upright, rallying troops, leading them forward. Colonel Taylor yelled, "There are only two kinds of people staying on this beach. Those who are dead and those who are going to die. Now let's get the hell out of here." Slowly, the tide turned. Small groups found gullies up the bluffs. Destroyers sailed dangerously close, blasting German positions at point-blank range. By midday, Americans clawed off the beach and pushed inland. The cost, over 2,000 casualties. Omaha was the closest the invasion came to failure, yet the men refused defeat. Gold Beach. The British 50th Division, supported by Hobart's Funnies, landed at 07:25. Specialized armor made immediate difference. Flail tanks detonated mines, AVREs demolished bunkers. The 716th Division defenders, largely older men and conscripts, fought with varying determination. By nightfall, the 50th advanced 6 miles inland, one of D-Day's deepest penetrations. Casualties, around 400. Juno Beach. The 3rd Canadian Division landed at 07:35, but delays proved costly. Rising tide covered more obstacles. Canadians faced withering fire from fortified towns. They fought back ferociously. The Royal Winnipeg Rifles and Regina Rifle Regiment stormed Courcelles under heavy fire. Fighting in town was savage, every house a potential strong point. The Queen's Own Rifles at Bernières-sur-Mer came under intense fire. Company Sergeant Major Martin recalled, "All hell broke loose. Men were hit before they could get off the ramp." By day's end, Canadians penetrated nearly 7 miles. Cost, 340 killed, hundreds wounded. Canada had returned to France. Sword Beach. The British 3rd Infantry Division would assault, aiming for Caen, 6 miles inland. Landing began at 07:25. Lord Lovat's commandos landed to bagpipes played by Private Millen, who waited ashore playing Highland Laddie. French commandos captured the fortified casino at Ouistreham. French soldiers liberating French soil. The British advanced toward Caen, but the 21st Panzer Division counterattacked, briefly reaching the coast. At the critical moment, hundreds of Allied aircraft appeared overhead, carrying airborne reinforcements. The German commander, fearing major landing behind his lines, ordered retreat. By nightfall, the 3rd Division hadn't reached Caen. The city wouldn't fall for another month. Yet they'd secured Sword Beach and established an unbreakable beachhead. Into the bocage. As darkness fell June 6th, commanders took stock. The invasion succeeded. 5 beachheads were established along 50 miles. Over 156,000 soldiers had landed. The Atlantic Wall was breached. Yet triumph was tempered. No major D-Day objectives fully achieved. Caen remained German. Beachheads were shallow. Casualties, approximately 10,000 Allied, 4,000 dead. German losses exceeded 450,000. Hitler, asleep when invasion began, wasn't informed until late morning. He refused releasing panzer reserves, still convinced Normandy was a diversion. Precious hours were lost. Days following D-Day brought brutal reality. The bocage, Norman countryside with thick hedgerows atop earthen banks, was a defender's paradise. Each hedgerow was a natural fortification. The Allies fought a series of vicious battles for every field and village. The battle for Carentan exemplified brutal fighting. The 101st Airborne fought through flooded fields and streets. After 3 days, Carentan fell June 12th, linking Utah and Omaha. Cost: over 2,000 casualties. British and Canadians faced equally difficult fighting around Caen. Montgomery shifted strategy. Draw German armor to the British sector, allowing American breakout west. Elite SS Panzer divisions arrived and fought savagely. The 12th SS, teenage fanatics, gained reputation for tactical skill and war crimes. Yet Allied buildup continued relentlessly. Mulberry harbors were operational. Supplies poured ashore. Germans struggled to reinforce as Allied fighter bombers harried every road. On June 19th, a fierce 3-day storm destroyed the American Mulberry at Omaha and damaged the British harbor. Over 800 vessels were lost, yet even this couldn't halt the invasion. The turning of the tide. By late June, the campaign settled into grim pattern. British and Canadians hammered Caen defenses. Americans fought through bocage toward Saint-Lô. Progress measured in yards. Casualties were appalling. Cherbourg fell June 26, providing a major port. Operation Epsom aimed to envelop Caen from west, but didn't break through. Operation Charnwood, launched July 8th, finally captured northern Caen after massive aerial bombardment that killed hundreds of French civilians and reduced the city to rubble. Operation Goodwood, July 18th, was the largest British armored operation. Over 750 tanks attacked east of Caen. After massive bombardment, armor swept forward, but German 88mm anti-tank guns opened fire at long range, destroying British tanks. By day's end, over 400 tanks were lost. Goodwood captured southern Caen's suburbs, but didn't achieve breakthrough. In the west, Americans prepared Operation Cobra. On July 25th, over 1,500 bombers carpet-bombed west of Saint-Lô. German units were pulverized. American armor poured through the breach. The bocage gave way to open country. The war of attrition became a war of movement. General Patton's Third Army became operational August 1st. Patton drove armored divisions deep into Brittany, then swung east, racing across northern France. Hitler ordered counteroffensive Operation Lüttich August 7th. 4 panzer divisions attacked toward Avranches. It failed catastrophically under Allied air power. The counteroffensive created an opportunity, trapped German armies in the Falaise pocket. Allied artillery and air power pounded trapped Germans mercilessly. Roads clogged with destroyed vehicles and bodies. On August 21st, the pocket closed. The carnage was indescribable. The Battle of Normandy was over. Paris would be liberated August 25th. By September, Allies reached Germany's borders. The Razwichals, the price of dawn, from June 6 to August 30th, Allied forces suffered approximately 29,000 casualties, including 37,000 killed. German casualties, 450,000. French civilians, 20,000 killed. Yet strategic achievement was immense. Overlord succeeded beyond optimistic estimates. The Allies established firm foothold, destroyed Germany's Western armies, and opened the second front Stalin demanded. Germany faced existential two-front war. D-Day's success rested on meticulous planning, overwhelming superiority, air and naval dominance, effective deception, and individual courage. Most important was Allied unity. Americans, British, Canadians, Free French, Poles set aside rivalries and fought together. The men who stormed beaches June 6th were farmers and factory workers, teachers and students. Most were teens or early 20s. Few had military experience. Yet they crossed an ocean and charged into fire and steel. Many fell before reaching shore, but enough pressed forward that the invasion succeeded. Normandy's cemeteries stand as testament. The American cemetery at Colleville-sur-Mer contains 9,388 graves overlooking Omaha Beach. British cemeteries at Bayeux and Ranville hold thousands more. The ages tell the story: 19, 20, 21, 22. Boys who never grew old. The people of Normandy haven't forgotten. Every village has memorials. On anniversaries, thousands gather to remember. Veterans return to walk ground they fought over. The bond between Normandy and liberators remains strong. Eisenhower reflected, "Every man knew that if he failed, this operation might not be tried again. They knew failure might mean world enslavement, but they knew their only chance of success lay in doing their full duty." The soldiers did their full duty and more. They changed history's course. They ensured democracy and freedom had a chance. D-Day was not war's end. Hard fighting lay ahead. The Bulge, crossing the Rhine, the final drive. War wouldn't end until May 1945. But Normandy was the beginning of the end, the day Allies seized initiative and never let go. Epilogue. 79 years have passed since that gray dawn. Veterans are now gone or in final years. The world they saved has changed beyond recognition. Yet D-Day's fundamental lesson remains. Tyranny can be defeated. Courage and unity can overcome daunting obstacles, and ordinary people are capable of extraordinary things. Normandy's beaches today are peaceful. Tourists stroll where men died. Children build sandcastles where landing craft disgorged frightened soldiers. Pillboxes remain, silent sentinels. But standing on those beaches in early morning mist, it's not difficult to imagine that distant June morning. You can almost hear aircraft drone, naval gunfire rumble, men shout, rifles crack. You can almost see landing craft approaching, ramps dropping, soldiers charging forward into history. They weren't supermen. They were ordinary men who wanted to go home, marry sweethearts, raise families, live in peace. But when called to stand against evil, they answered. They crossed an ocean, stormed a fortified coast, fought across a continent. They did what had to be done. D-Day ultimately is a story of hope, a reminder that even in darkest hours when tyranny seems ascendant, people will stand and fight. The arc of history, though it bends slowly and at great cost, can be bent toward justice. We who live in peace they won owe them an unpayable debt. We can only remember, honor, and strive to be worthy of their sacrifice. We can teach our children D-Day's story as living legacy. We can visit cemeteries and place flowers. We can stand on beaches and say, "We remember. We will always remember." For as long as memory endures, June 6, 1944, will be remembered as the day freedom returned to Europe. The day ordinary men achieved the extraordinary. The day the tide turned, the longest day, as carved into the American Cemetery Memorial. These endured all and gave all that justice among nations might prevail, and that mankind might enjoy freedom and inherit peace. They gave all. We must never forget.